If you're at the point in your landscaping business where you're thinking about hiring someone to help you with estimates, then this video is for you. And by the way, if you're new to these videos, my name is Nick Staples, and over the past 9 years, my business partner and I have grown our landscaping business to over $3 million in annual revenue by offering basic maintenance services. So let me start by telling you what we did first. So we were about 1.5 million or so in revenue, maybe a little bit less than that. I can't remember exactly, but anyway, we decided, okay, we're going to go out, we're going to hire someone to help us with our estimates so we can free up more of our time to do more marketing, more ads, and just grow the business. So we said to ourselves, okay, let's hire somebody who's done estimates before, right? Because that's what everyone tells you to do, is to hire people who have experience, who've done the job before. So what we basically did is we put an ad out, and then we got applications from a lot of people who owned their own business for a while. So they had experience doing estimates. We had experience from people who had like a side business. Maybe they worked at a landscape company, but they did a little estimating on the side. And then I don't think that we ever really got applications from people who worked at other landscaping companies doing estimates. And that was most likely because we weren't paying enough, nor could we afford to pay enough to really make someone like that move from like a big organization over to ours just to do estimates for us. And so we hired somebody who had experience doing estimates because they own their own business. But the problem is that there's no guarantee that their capability, like their estimating ability, is even good, right? If they were really good at pricing jobs, then there's a decent chance that they probably would still be running their own business. Or at least maybe if they were doing it on the side, they'd still be doing that because they were making decent money, right? And so the other thing we found is that those people, just like us at the time of hiring, and we're going to get into this more, they didn't have a system for doing the estimates. They just had so much experience doing the work that they could just kind of look at something and roughly understand, what it was worth and how much time would go into it. And so that was the first mistake that we kind of made, is we assumed if someone has experience that they'd be able to do it. Now, the really big mistake here that I think is important to mention as well is that we also couldn't even afford this person. So the mentality that we had was, we're going to grow from 1.3 million to 1.6, for example. And at 1.3 million, we made $0. But we think if we can grow to 1.6, we'll make enough money to pay for this person and make some profit. And that was just wrong. There was just so many assumptions baked into that. And so if you're thinking about hiring an estimator, the first thing I would ask yourself is, did I make enough profit the previous year to at least pay for this person's salary? I'm not saying that you need to be making a crazy high profit margin on top, after their salary. But if you're $1 million business and you think you're going to pay 60 grand for an estimator, did you make at least 60 grand last year? Because if not, there's a good chance that despite your best efforts, you're going to hire this person and you're going to end up losing money. And again, you have to remember, even if everything goes perfectly the same, for year to year, and you hire that person, then you'd break even, right? If you made 60 grand the year before, you bring this person on, everything's exactly the same, you'd break even, you make $0. But the problem is you're introducing another variable, right? So not only are you're going to, maybe you're trying to grow, maybe you're trying to do these things, but now you have someone else doing estimates for you. So who's to say that they're not going to make a mistake and cost you a decent amount of money, and then you end up making less? So to some degree, this is like an inherent risk of business, right? This is why it's so hard, because you have to take some risk like this. But at a bare minimum, I would say if you haven't made at least enough money in the past, or you don't have enough money saved in your bank account that you truly could use as a backup plan, then chances are there's something else in your business that you should probably fix first before you bring on an estimator. So that's just like a blanket statement that I figured was important, just because we made that mistake. We thought things would just get better, and they didn't. And then by bringing this person in, it just amplified the problems we already had, and then we ended up losing money that year. So don't do that. Now, in terms of like qualifying this person, right? Like I said, we were looking for people with experience, which again, not all experience is good experience. So we were looking for someone with experience, but when they came in, they had some experience, but we didn't really have the best system for them to follow. We didn't have a way to track what they were doing. And again, you really don't want to do that, right? Because imagine this is almost a worst case scenario. Imagine you hire someone to do your estimates. You don't have any systems at all. They're just purely off their experience, and they're really good at it, right? not even bad. Like they're actually good. They price everything accurately and they do everything right. Now that person has a ton of leverage over you, and you rely on that person so heavily that like if they left, if they were sick, if they wanted more pay, you kind of don't have a choice because they just know they can just do it, right? It's not your systems, it's not your business that's allowing them to do it. It's just their skill. And again, there's nothing wrong with hiring people who are really skilled, but you don't want to put yourself in that type of position to be so vulnerable to where if someone leaves, you're right back to where you started before. You don't have an easy way of spinning up another person to do that job. You really have to make sure that you have a concrete system that you've been following successfully for enough time to where you've seen a lot of all of the corner cases, and you can say, if I pass this system on to someone else, they will be able to follow it. And then more importantly, I'll be able to check in to see what they're doing to make sure they're doing it correctly. And that's another huge thing, right? Like imagine you send someone to go estimate like a lawn mowing job and they charge 75 and it should have been 150 per week. If you don't have at least a measurement or a metric that you can see that they used to get that price, then you really have no way of holding them accountable because you just told them to go there and guess. Whereas if you said, hey, all lawn mowing quotes are based off square footage, and you looked into that account and you saw, okay, they only measured it at 9,000, but it's actually 18,000. Then at that point, you would be able to say, okay, look, why did you measure it at 9,000 instead of 18? And then maybe they just straight up made a mistake, or maybe they were being careless or whatever it is. But at least that way you can go in and see what are they doing wrong, so you can prevent it from happening again in the future. And so you really need to believe, first of all, that this is possible with any service. It doesn't matter if you're doing hardscape planting, roofing, siding, construction. Maintenance is easier, I think, to develop these systems, but there's still a lot of nuance and details that go into it. And I did put out a whole video about pricing and how we do this specifically for the services that we offer. I believe it's pricing part 1. So check that out if you are in the landscaping business and you want to know how we do it for each service. So again, don't just hire based off experience. Their experience might not be good. You need to make sure you have a really good system that you've been following that has gotten you accurate pricing, that you can actually look at the inputs they decide to get pricing. So if you're around that $1 million mark, 1.5, maybe going to 2, whatever it is, and you're thinking about hiring someone to do your estimates, these are some things to think about. And if you're much smaller than that too, then these are some things you should still be thinking about. So that way, by the time you get to that point and you can afford this person, that maybe you already have a lot of it ironed out. You don't have to kind of catch up, right? So hopefully you liked this video. Hopefully it was helpful. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And that's all I got for you on this one, and we'll catch you on the next one.